Controlling the human mind, the technologies of political control, or is it tools for peak performance? In a moment, our special show continues now with Nick Begich right here on Coast to Coast AM. Dr. Nick Begich, Executive Director of the Lay Institute on Technology, which is a Texas not-for-profit corporation. He is also a publisher, co-owner of Earth Pulse Press Incorporated, well known for his work and research on mind effects, having widely reported these areas to us. He's written books on HAARP. Angels don't play this HAARP, as a matter of fact. And we're talking about controlling the human mind. Nick Begich with us for the full 4-hour show tonight. Hey, Nick, how are you?
I'm great. It's good to be with you, George. And it's,
you too.
It's been a little while.
You camped down, ready to go?
I am indeed. I'm looking forward to it. 4 hours. We haven't done that in a while, and I'm sure we'll have a great program.
I thought I'd do that. I was reading your book, Controlling the Human Mind, last week, and just finished it today. And, I sent an email to producer Tommy tonight, and I said, hey, Tom, let's get Nick for the full 4 hours. There's too much to cover. And he said, yeah, okay, we'll give it a try. And here you are.
Always a pleasure. It's always a good time, and it's a good way to get a lot of information out to a lot of people, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to do that tonight.
I want to tell you one of the neat things for me doing this program, Nick. About a year ago, I'm at a conference, and I'm walking down the aisles where so many people have their booths, and they're all tremendous coast-to-coast fans. And I heard this voice going, hey, George. I turned around, and it was you.
Right.
So often, we talk on the phone a lot, but we don't get a chance to meet in person. And it's kind of neat for me, too, to put a face with a voice.
Absolutely. And it doesn't happen nearly enough. And, where I am in Alaska, I'm so far removed from the rest of the world. I call it the moon sometimes, because we are really removed. 1,500 miles to Seattle by air. So, it's always great to see the people that we work with. And, and we've been doing radio for an awful long time.
We sure have. Hey, this weather... I know we're going to talk about the mind, but what the heck is going on? Has somebody flipped HAARP on and they're doing something to us? This is weird stuff.
Well, the whole situation with weather is dramatic and changing. Here in Anchorage, where we're sitting. Well, it's actually just starting to get to be sunset at this moment, around 9:15 our time. But we just got hit with a pretty good load of snow, and we've had some really strange oscillations in our weather. A lot colder. Longer this winter, and then back to relatively early breakup for us. I think we're just in for extremes, and a lot of it is natural. I think most of it is natural cycles, and then, of course, man has the ability now to kind of mess with that a little bit. One of the big things, the tornadoes in the last a couple of days, that was one of the things Dr. Easton was working on. He passed away in December, but up until that time, that was one of his projects, was figuring out ways to mitigate the power in storm fronts that would yield tornadoes. And his thought was you could actually heat up these cold fronts sufficiently so that when they struck the warmer air areas, they wouldn't create that shearing sort of motion. The tornadoes would not form. And, it was an interesting, concept, but never really got tested as far as we know.
Hey, Nick, American Airlines canceling hundreds of these flights.
Right.
And I'm looking at all these incredible weather patterns, and I'm just wondering, and I know they're doing it because of, confabs with the FAA, but I'm wondering if they've looked at the severe weather, and they said, you know what, if we're going to do it, let's do it right now.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either. And, and it would be prudent in any case to, pay attention to these kinds of extremes. I think a little more caution is in order. And, when you look at air safety, defaulting in favor of safety really is the only option. So I'm glad that the FAA in this instance is pushing the issue. And, and it's affecting a lot of airlines, a lot of travelers. I know not just American, but Alaskan Airlines and Delta had some of their flights grounded as well. Not so severe, but nonetheless, and all that's pretty impacting. And, You know, air safety, and these organizations weren't set up for corporations. They were set up for you and I, for public safety. So I'm glad they're doing what they need to do, and hopefully those planes will be up in the air soon.
Tonight we talk about the human mind. What's going on with me where I've got, I really believe, an incredible memory on so many things. And then every once in a while I'll get these silly little lapses where I'll be at my computer and I'll say, I've got to go to this website to check on this story. And then like 10 seconds later, I forgot the website. And I'm hitting myself in the head, Nick, trying to figure out what it is, and then it comes back to me. Yet I've got this incredible recollection for so many other things.
Right.
And, I'm saying to myself, down at 57, I hope I'm not getting the old Alzheimer's disease or anything like that. I don't think I am. But what happens with one's brain, with one's mind, when you have those little lapses?
Well, it could be a lot of different things. But when you look at the human brain in terms of just how memory affects it, some of the interfaces with modern technology can affect short-term memory. A lot of people don't really think too much about this, but cell phones, portable phones, in the big studies that have been done, actually create some interference with short-term memory. A lot of people don't recognize that as such, but when you start to think about, how much do you use these kinds of interfaces, it's more and more. I mean, especially busy people. And very few people have avoided them entirely. But when you think about it, there's a lot of things that, that can contribute to memory. The aging process, of course, is part of that. The breakdown of the blood-brain barrier, where more toxins come into the brain, can be a part of that. And that's, again, maybe the mechanism behind some of these things. But when you really look at the brain itself, we always hear the story, we only use a small percentage, and perhaps that's true, but in terms of activating or getting to know sort of what we can do with the brain, I think that's where a lot of excitement is. And over the years we've covered sort of the dark side of all of that, and and there's a lot to be said for that. But at the same time, the potentials of the human mind and what it links us to, I think, is probably the most exciting thing that we can look forward to if, science can be directed in maybe a little different direction than it is.
Well, and the subconscious mind is absolutely an incredible tool.
Yes.
That I find myself, Nick, using it more and more by just turning it loose, letting it do what it's supposed to do.
Right.
To solve these problems, these day-to-day dilemmas, and it works.
Right. When you think about the brain, and a lot of what gets in the way is our own system of beliefs. When you really look at sort of the limiting factors, it's kind of we stand in our own way. Because if you really start to look at the science of the mind and what we're learning about it, we have all these potentials. They refer to them nowadays as anomalous human potentials, what we used to call ESP. But ESP, for a lot of people, have all kinds of different connotations. So they kind of avoided that, that phrase and sort of resurrected the concept. But this idea of stimulating the brain to create better memory, so we don't have those lapses, to create more coherent thinking, where right and left brain are working together, where that intuition can do what it's designed to do, the subconscious, if you will. And, when you think of the subconscious, they say under hypnosis they can take you down, deep enough. You can, for instance, know how many telephone poles you passed from one traveling point to another, in the course of a day. And you'll instantly be able to relay it. Because the mind, absorbs everything the senses picks up. It's our ability to randomly access all that information. And some of us are really good at the most bizarre bits and pieces, while other things elude us. And it's just the way in which we've constructed sort of those pathways by which our memories work. I'm a little bit dyslexic, which I used to think was a problem, but actually it's kind of a random access memory, I call it, because you can pull things up in a really different kind of way, but it's sort of the way you compensate, or way I've compensated for it, is by honing the memory. And you can artificially stimulate the mind and memory.
Nick, political pundits for years have recommended to candidates negative ads. That's how you beat your opponent. We're gonna manipulate the voters' minds. Negative ads. I always thought, compliment the guy. Say, you know what? I think I'm a better candidate, but I like Joe. He's a good guy, or whatever.